Hi everyone, Anthony Santano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Shlohmo and Jeremih EP, No More. This new EP is a collaboration between Shlohmo and Jeremih, Shlohmo being an up-and-coming electronic music producer from California. I enjoyed his Bad Vibes album that dropped in 2011. This LP was full of whisper quiet, bedroom-produced glitch hop that was really groovy, pretty, serene, seductive. But then on his next two EPs, there was a pretty sudden change of pace, especially on his last one, Laid Out, which I loved. An EP that essentially delivered a series of very moody, atmospheric trap bangers. There was even an R&B flavored track with How to Dress Well on the cut that was a very nice song. A heartbreaker of a song. And now, Shlohmo seems to be moving further in that direction with Jeremih, a Chicago-based singer-songwriter, R&B artist. It's not a surprise to me that Shlohmo would reach out to a guy like this to work with him because he's a bit of a musical chameleon. He's always hopping on to the next trend. And now, hedonistic, nocturnal R&B with a single tear streaming down its face is where Shlohmo wants to stake claim next. Aesthetically, this project isn't too unlike The Weeknd's music. His last song was the perfect soundtrack to cold, emotionless sex with perfect strangers on top of a beer-soaked rug with some cocaine residue on it. Now, this new EP is kind of similar in experience, in narrative, in sound, though I will say that the characteristics are slightly different. For one, I love the instrumentals off of this thing. I think the instrumentals are maybe the most appealing thing about the project. On the title track to this thing, I love the harsh, distorted, gurgling lead melody set against some really tight trap music grooves, twittering hi-hats on this thing, and a really ear-tingling ting of a sound. It's like this beat has a bit of an industrial flavor to it. Really grabs my attention. Then there's the remix of the Jeremih song, Fuck You All the Time, which has this slow-mo, sensual, lush chorus. It's intoxicating as hell. And there's a bass line on this thing that moves as slow as molasses. I mean, molasses. But the song itself that the instrumentation builds doesn't do too much for me outside the female lead vocals on this thing. The male vocals, Jeremih's vocals, don't really move me, and the pitched down rapping on this thing is pretty horrific. Though I could see why Shlohmo would take on this song in Jeremih's version on his record. It's so stripped back and simple, it's kind of tempting to put your own spin on it. The rising wall of synthesizers on the hook from the song Bo Peep is really nice. For the most part, I'm very enamored with every instrumental on this record. It's really Jeremih and his incredibly depraved lyrics where I don't really get anything out of this project. Like on the song Dope, where essentially he's talking about engaging in drugs and sex to kill the monotony, when in fact all he's really doing here is creating a monotonous song. How many songs are there out there about similar topics with a similar theme, with a similar story? There are some cringeworthy lyrics on this thing, truthfully, honestly, no joke. The last track on this thing, the end, you just want to get a G all in your G spot. Not to mention the completely needless Chance the Rapper feature on this track, where Chance is just sort of shouting, filling up space, killing time. Then the song sort of fizzles out, ends abruptly. To me, Jeremih isn't a terrible singer. He has quite a good falsetto, and I think he's got command over his voice. I just think what he's singing about and the way that he sings is just so awfully trendy that it's kind of hard to see him for the artist that he is, or the distinct artist that he could be. A lot of the time on top of these tracks, I just feel like he is a placeholder who's just merely fulfilling a sound that's kind of hot right now. A sound that Shlohmo really wanted to pursue, and Jeremih was just the fastest way to get there. There are some tracks on this EP that I like, such as No More or Let It Go, but there's not much I find appealing about these tracks outside of the instrumental. Honestly, I'm sort of feeling a strong 5 on this thing. I like the beats, I like the aesthetic. It's just the other half, the storytelling, the singing, that I don't really care for. Transition? If you've given this EP a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, subscribe. Do it! Forever.